Welcome to Journey Now, a podcast about following Jesus that takes on serious issues without ever taking itself too seriously. Each week, the pastors, staff, and friends of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee gather to catch up, share life together, and laugh a little. Okay, a lot. Maybe too much. But along the way, they also explore what it really means to bring heaven to earth, share Jesus' hospitality, and live cross-shaped lives. Part babble, part Bible, and occasionally even thoughtful and entertaining. This is Journey Now.
Hey, welcome to a Journey Now podcast. We've sorry for about what you're about to hear.
And we've got bad news. The good news is that we just spent the last 20 minutes
sparing you
absolute idiots. And we're bantered out.
Yeah.
So for some of you, that's good news.
Yes.
Because we'll just jump right in.
Especially Grant.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, actually, so this morning...
Oh, no. We're not done.
We have a shout out to give.
Yeah, we do.
And a little hurt. Are you hurt? Was it a little pain?
I was very hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say, you know how they ask in the hospital, what's your physical pain scale? I'm going to do emotional pain scale.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say 7.3.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was yours?
I was probably an 8.2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and because...
And I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's okay. So Mike and I this morning, speaking of banter, is what that's the point.
Yep.
Guys, there was some great stuff that you just missed, and I'm sorry, and I feel terrible about it.
Yeah.
But
speaking
of banter, we were playing the pickleballs this morning.
Yep.
With our friend Eric and Jan.
Who wore her t-shirt that said, I have a dinking problem.
Yes.
So just that frames this.
Yeah.
Very much.
And Jan's like, I listened to your podcast.
Well, he was trying to find a Sunday. Right. He was trying to find, he missed the last Sunday, so he was trying to find the Sunday
Oh, yeah.
thing.
I can see that's a problem.
And then he was like, well, I just found you and Susie and Kevin and Tim making jokes.
Yeah, for 15 minutes. I'm like, yeah, that's the best time of the whole podcast.
He sounded really disappointed.
He was like, I think he turned it off.
Yeah.
So we told him we'd talk about him and make fun of him a little bit.
Yeah. So I pronounce his name Yawn.
Yeah.
Y-A-W-N.
Ooh, yeah.
Burn.
Yeah. He
roasted.
He feels it.
I can tell.
I felt the pickleball whistling by me all day.
Yes. I'm pretty sure he's not going to listen to this, so I think we're safe.
No, he's going to listen.
Is he?
We told him we'd make fun of him today.
So he's going to.
So anyways,
that's how we get more listeners.
It's short banter.
It is. We promise we'll mention you.
If you hate us.
Yeah. So banter done.
Yeah.
Banter done.
What I did learn.
Give us that 1-star rating on Apple.
That people that are starting out are kind of like, what's going on here? So it's probably good for us to say, hey, we generally have a lot of banter.
And we're winding into the topic.
Yeah.
We haven't seen each other. We're all showing up.
Yeah.
And this is how we actually normally relate.
Yes.
This is not actually
we just did for 20 minutes.
We just did it.
Yeah,
and Edwin keeps threatening to hit record. And we're like, not yet.
Inappropriate.
That won't work.
Susie's not here.
Don't re-record. Oh, right.
Yeah. So Grant doesn't even have to do show notes right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just it's straight. We're straight in.
Yeah.
We're straight in. So Brad, hello. Banter, done.
I'm feeling bad religion.
Yep.
And now I'm feeling
Social Distortion. Now, some of you texted in future ideas for series names.
Yes.
And because there are some churches that say, hey, let's look at the Bible and look at the church and say, what does the church need?
Yeah.
We want to be a church that says, let's find a cool title and then we'll find Bible verses to support
around it.
Right. So the Pixies,
we don't.
Misfits,
we don't do that.
Black Flag. There were some inappropriate ones. The Sex Pistols were mentioned. I'm not saying Offspring.
Yeah, that came through the text line.
So all that is to say,
Devo.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I mean, that's more pop punk.
Yeah.
But I'm in.
That's more pop punk.
Well, I was just trying to.
Debbie Gibson.
Tiffany.
Yeah,
that was last episode sponsored by the 80s. Anyway, all that is to say, so Bad Religion talked about all of the negative aspects of community or leadership or abusive spirituality in the name of Jesus.
Really quick, Grant, that's 4 minutes that we are already into the
4-minute mark. Yeah.
I mean, Grant, put that in your pipe.
Yeah. Okay.
Put that in your vineyard and drink it.
But don't smoke it.
Vineyard. That's so stupid. I love it. Grant has a vineyard, by the way.
Yeah, Grant literally has a vineyard.
Yeah. So you can say, put that in your vineyard and smoke it.
Yeah. Or drink it.
Or drink it. Yeah. Or press it.
Yeah.
Oh, because he presses one.
Yeah. Okay, 4.5 minutes.
Okay.
Now, here we go. So we started a new series called Social Distortion that we're trying to say we're not just deconstructing.
Yeah.
We want to reconstruct. And yes, of course, there are people who have been hurt by the church. Absolutely. But there isn't an option that just exists that says, hey, let's go somewhere else and be by myself. Like the way we are saved is like through other people and the way we encounter God in other people. So that's not the way we're saved, but one of the ways salvation plays itself out is that we're saved into a corporate body. And so this was very confusing.
And it has also been very deconstructing for people.
Yes.
So we didn't move to reconstruction. We just kept deconstructing.
On the bad religion side.
Yeah, but no, even on Sunday.
On Sunday, yes.
It was like you lit a fire.
Well, we lit something.
Fire?
Yep.
Fire.
Yep. In this case, we did start the fire.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
It was always burning.
Come on. Yeah. Since the world's been turning.
Yep.
So, Kevin, Dixon, Tim's pickleball, go to the gym. I don't know, mommy juice.
No.
All right. Okay. 5 minutes. Here we go. Now.
Okay. Yeah. Grit.
So
5:52.
So I spoke on the idea that sin, salvation, and spirituality are corporate, communal, and social concepts in the Bible. Now, that doesn't mean they're not individual concepts too.
Oh.
It just means
Thanks for clearing that up. Yes.
They're primarily social constructs. So, I gave the example of
social distortion.
Thus social distortion.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, and it works in so many different ways.
It
Good.
does.
Kevin nailed it.
Yeah.
So of course, sin is a disruption in the vertical, if you will, if we're going to use spatial imagery, the vertical connection that the creatures have with Creator.
Yep.
And it's also the horizontal disruption of the shalom that the creatures were to have with one another.
Right.
The story that was narrated to most of us is a story that almost exclusively deals with that vertical dimension. I'm a sinner in my heart.
Yeah.
God has come in the form of Jesus. I accept Jesus into my heart. And it makes no public demands of me. That narration. Yes.
What's interesting is, because I'm always thinking about, where did we get these things? I mean, we get that question all the time. Like, where did we get that?
Yeah.
Because even when Jesus then pulls because I was thinking that the 10 Commandments are do not kill.
Right.
But it's like, well, even if and it goes to this personal thing, do this.
Yep.
Then it's like, ooh, even if I, Tim Timmons, hate somebody, that I've just killed him. Even if I lust after somebody, I've just had an affair. You know, it's like,
even those internals, quote unquote, are actually social.
Right. But I didn't take it that way.
Right.
I took it as like, Jesus was saying to you, let's make these things personal, guys.
It has its roots in Gnosticism, actually.
Oh, here we go. Big words.
Yeah.
I need a bell.
Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you contract that?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Actually, I think
Jan probably has it.
He totally has Gnosticism.
Yeah, he totally has a bad case of Gnosticism, and there's ointment for that, Jan. All right, there's ointment, and it's okay. All right, it's not embarrassing.
Oh, we're at 10 minutes.
Just come out with it. Just come out with it.
Yeah,
it's a safe place.
Yeah. But Kev's right. Christianity became an internal, and it had to, in order for us to treat people the way that we've treated them in our history. Right. So the only way that I can have slaves, the only way that I can colonize, the only way that I can murder is if
do God a crusade,
an inquisition, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is if all that God's interested in is my internal
football
life.
on the beach,
bro.
Come on,
callbacks.
Yay,
man, on fire.
On fire.
So yes,
I didn't start it though.
So does Jesus? Oh, Kevin on fire!
Wow.
So does Jesus care about the internal? Yes. The issue is that even my internal dispositions involve dispositions towards others. So literally, for me, sin isn't just the disruption between me and God. Sin is the disruption that manifests in social public reality.
Right.
And because in American Christianity, at least this version that I've experienced, it's been almost exclusively defined in individual terms.
Yep.
We wanted to speak almost hyperbolically the opposite direction to say, no. And we even had a guy come up and say, well, what about like the sin of lust or like pornography where it doesn't look like another person's affected?
Yeah.
And then you just peel that back a little bit and you're like, okay, well, first of all, it involves another person.
Yep.
Secondly, you're not honoring them as an image bearer. You're using them to consume. You're objectifying them without giving them any dignity whatsoever. In fact, participating in that is robbing them of dignity.
Right.
Also, by trafficking those sites, you are validating
exploitation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So what we would consider an internal disposition, Jesus connects to external public realities. So for all those freaking out, does God care about the individual? Of course he does. He goes to the one, right, and leaves the 99. Yeah. The point is, when he rescues the one, he restores the one back to the 99 where the one belongs. Right. The fact that the one was out there is bad.
Yes.
And so the primary expression of how salvation plays out is through this corporate body called the church. Not the service, but the communal identity. Yes.
And just to add to that, this idea that the one sheep that goes away is still considered to be part of the flock.
Come on.
He's just restoring it to its rightful
place in the community.
Right, in the community. So that and the same is true with the lost son.
Right.
The lost son goes away. He's still his son.
Right.
He may be in a distant land. He may be having a bad day.
Yeah.
A lot might be going on there, but at the disposition or the relational component of this doesn't go away.
No, and that's what's beautiful is the individual on their own is the problem. The individual in community is the solution.
Right. That's where flourishing happens.
Totally.
That's the point of it's how flourishing should be happening.
And that there isn't as fine a distinction, and this confused, I think, some people on Sunday, between loving God and loving neighbor as we think there is. When Jesus says the second command is just like the first, and the first is love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and the second is love your neighbor yourself, but the second one's like the first one. In Greek, that he's saying they're two sides of the exact same command. So the way you love God is by loving your neighbor. So that's why John will say, if you don't love your neighbor, you don't love God. I mean, it's literally that clear. Now, because we're individualists, we have made that fine distinction between my inner devotional life with God and my outer public life with each other.
Yeah.
And as long as the inner life is okay, I'm fine, I'm going to heaven, I'm good.
Yeah.
Jesus doesn't give that same sort of permission to make that separation. And that's why I think it gets confusing.
And neither does Mr. Rogers. I mean, if you watch Mr. Rogers at
You're
all.
on fire.
Wow.
I mean,
Will you be my neighbor?
Yeah.
But the principle, if you've ever seen the movie with Forrest Gump as the star of the show.
Yeah.
Where he...
Big.
Big.
Tom Hanks?
Tom Hanks. That's it. Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks did play Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Or do you mean?
In the movie.
Okay,
and
got
the
it.
movie,
so Forrest Gump's a character playing another character who's played by Tom Hanks.
That's perfect.
Yes, got it. I tracked it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Continue.
Yeah,
but that movie, is a good picture of what we're talking about.
Nice.
Anyway,
I love that. Yes,
there's a guy that enters into his life to write the story of Mr. Rogers, and this reporter, as he engages, the reporter is just a skeptic on is this guy really who he claims to be.
Oh, that's cool.
And I won't spoil it for you if you haven't seen it.
So good.
It is. It's an amazing
Ted Lasso movie.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's better than Ted Lasso. But,
whoa.
Yeah.
That's strong.
But it's just really odd that Forrest Gump plays Mr. Rogers.
That is so odd.
I don't know what to do with that.
That is so odd. Yeah, and Forrest Gump played it like a space astronaut in Apollo 13. Forrest Gump was isolated on an island.
Yeah. Who would put
He was in Big.
Forrest Gump was in Big. I mean, Forrest Gump's kind of an amazing person.
That thing you do.
Yeah. Perfect.
It blows my mind.
Yeah. Joe and the Volcano.
They interview him sometimes on TV now.
I know.
Yeah, Indiana Jones was playing in Star Wars, and I remember when
Yeah,
That's okay. It's a different.
Or was it Han Solo playing in Indiana Jones? I'm not sure. And then he was the president of the United States. That was the thing that was amazing.
Yes.
Brad, come on, Air Force One, Brad.
Oh, so good.
Weird.
All right,
anyway,
so we got questions.
Yeah, we do. Here's one. I'll lob one in there just so we get ready.
All right, Grant, that was 14 minutes.
Yeah.
Now we're going to
fine. Now we're starting.
We're trying.
Now we're starting.
We are, and we're not doing a good job. This may be a silly question, but does this mean that people who are part of a community of believers and behave like Jesus, the community, but don't accept Jesus, are they still considered to be saved?
Yes,
this is a reoccurring question.
Absolutely. So we weren't talking about how you are saved. We're
Correct.
talking about what being saved looks like and what being in sin looks like.
Yeah.
So when you and we did this, we just drew out the implications from Genesis 3 and this forbidden fruit thing,
which was genius.
Well, thank you. All of it is showing up in communal behaviors and public behaviors. So you wouldn't just naturally pick up the Bible and go, oh yeah, sin is this internal kind of. Well, it is, but it's not just that.
Right.
And so we weren't trying to answer how people are saved. So somebody came up very, very graciously, just was like, first time here was like, hey, I really think this is heretical, what you were saying. And
I'm so glad to be here.
Super gentle, like smiling. And this is one of the things I said. We're not talking about how you get in. We're talking about what inness looks like and what outness looks like.
Right.
And the language that Paul in particular, but Jesus also uses are all communal. Like you were far from God as a people. You were alienated. You were not heirs to the promise. He's describing the whole of Gentile reality. When you're in the saved community, now he's going to use, like we're going to see, household and familial language to describe that reality. So what we're just trying to say is, listen, you can't separate the vertical, and I hate using that language because it's so cliche. You can't separate the vertical and the horizontal. We all know this, but to actually live into the kind of transformation Jesus wants for us, this is what it looks like. Go ahead. So
No, I think
Do it.
That's a great way of putting it. But I think also somebody could not believe in Jesus, but still experience the benefit of the community by being a part of the community. I think a lot of people migrated into the Israelite community and experienced the benefit of the Israeli community.
And can I just push this a little bit?
Push.
The idea that there is one definitive moment or prayer.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Is it possible that somebody is being a part of a community comes to see the beauty and majesty of Jesus and they don't know that they're supposed to do it, but somehow they have faith?
Right.
I'm totally open to that.
Yeah.
But it's not being a part of the community that saves them. It's being a part of the community that is what it means to be saved.
And what that looks like. And
what's
that's
that mean?
Also experience a little bit of salvation. You can experience a taste of salvation without embracing Jesus.
Absolutely.
And that's part of part of the dilemma I think people have. I think you can be a counterfeit too. I think you can be a part of a community of followers and never embrace the one you're following and pretend you did.
Yeah.
You
can still do all the same things, do all the good.
And you couldn't tell the difference.
And that's bad religion. Part of what Jesus gets after is if all there is to your faith is the public performance of faithfulness in order to be seen, then there's no reality there. So of course the inside matters. Right. But the point that Jesus and Paul are making is that the inside cannot be separated from the public display and performance of faith in a community.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. Yes, Kev.
Yeah. Okay. A couple more questions.
Okay.
If sin is social, what shall we do with the concept of sinning against oneself?
Yeah.
And that kind of goes along with somebody asked a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Is it possible to sin if you're alone? Like, if there's no other humans, is it possible then to sin?
Yeah.
And
that's a great question.
And they kind of sit in that same
genre.
How does if all sin is communal?
Yeah.
Then all I can do, then if I just am not around people, I won't sin anymore.
Yeah.
And the logical conclusion to that is, well, then I don't need Jesus.
Right. Or I accept Jesus and then just don't get involved in community because that's okay. So first of all, there's a text in Corinthians where Paul says anyone who sins sexually sins against their own body.
Right.
Now notice though, that's a public sin. So the one sin that he says is a sin against yourself involves another person. So I don't. yes, all sin is a sin against yourself.
Right.
Because as we sin, we're malformed. Like we're like, right. As part of what it is to sin, it means you're reaping whatever consequences are baked into the sin itself. So absolutely. So anytime I choose the path of lust or greed or pride, of course I'm sinning against myself. But all of those involve other people. All right. So is it possible for me to sit in a room by myself and sin? Of course it's possible. But the kind of sins I would be thinking about or feeling all involve either a made up or actual reality involving another person.
There's some kind of fantasy involved.
Totally. Comparison.
Yeah.
Pride. Pride is when I'm measuring against somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Self-righteousness. I'm measuring against somebody. Right? Humility. I'm choosing the lowest part of a social order. I mean, I can't think of many righteous behaviors or many sinful actions that are done purely by yourself. Even so, somebody could say, well, what about masturbation or something like pornography? And again, we're back to that is involving another person. Yeah. Maybe not actually, but certainly in the objectifying sense. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but this also goes back to the idea of community and being in isolation. This is I was trying to think of how to explain this. Isolation is never seen as a good thing.
Right.
Outside of community.
Right. Never.
One time, Jesus, even when Jesus goes into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, doesn't eat, fast, he's vulnerable.
Yeah.
He becomes vulnerable to attack.
That's a great point.
The sheep, as it leaves the 99, becomes vulnerable. Yeah. The idiot son who goes to a foreign land, blows all his money. Yeah. He's vulnerable.
That'll preach.
Yeah.
Social D.
Yeah. So aloneness in and of itself is not the answer to the question of how do I not sin anymore?
Well, even
it just makes us more vulnerable.
Even without sin,
right,
in the garden,
right,
it's not good that the human was by themselves,
right?
Yeah, I think that question might not be the right question. I mean, it's like
it's a one, but yeah.
No, I just mean what we're doing is you're almost going tic-tac on like, could there possibly be one sin, or is there a possible way that I could be by myself and still follow the way of Jesus? And
it's missing the forest.
For
the trees.
For the trees.
This is another way of saying the question.
But this is how tightly we hold on to individualism.
Yeah.
Right.
This is so what was threatened, at least for me, by this conversation is my rugged individualism, my own sense of destiny, my own sense of identity. Yep. Like, I don't want to be part of a collectivist culture where I don't get to pick my spouse, I don't get to pick my church, I don't get to pick my vocation. That sounds like death to me. Right? And so we're so immersed in that water, we will try to nitpick the exceptions to every rule. Well, what if I'm by myself? Can I sin then? And the answer is of course. Of course you can. But that the nature of that sin's gonna be involving some other being.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anyway, go ahead.
Either God or somebody else or whatever.
And at 99% of that sin will be a communal communal repercussions.
So let's say there's one.
That's what
let's say there's one exception. Okay, that makes my point.
Yeah,
right.
But yes,
our tendency is to make gods out of things anyway. So part of the vertical sin that we worship things that aren't God. We give our hearts to things that aren't. It's our we do it as humans.
And how do we know what we worship? It's always public behavior.
Right.
So worship in the Old Testament's injustice.
Okay, this guy tries to get around it another way.
Perfect.
Okay,
I like it.
Let's protect it. We need to protect the individual.
Right. The gospel shows Jesus walking around engaging with and healing. Greek word sozo equals salvation. I didn't look this up.
It is.
Okay.
It can mean physical healing or salvation. Yeah.
With and healing individuals. Take stories like the woman at the well, the Canaanite woman, the man at the pool, the thief on the cross, etc.
Yeah.
Doesn't that depict some element of individuality in all of this? Add to this the historic precedent set by the desert fathers and mothers encountering God individually and in solitude. All that to say, can't a person have not only an encounter, but a robust, I love it, robust, relationship with God as an individual? Wouldn't that be a type of salvation? Type is in quotes.
Got it.
Just
yeah. Well, okay. Well, first of all,
See, this is another angle.
oh, it's
Yeah,
so
but it's
good.
so good. I mean,
and
this
these
is-
are great. These are great,
so good.
legit questions.
Yep.
So let's take Zacchaeus.
Obvious.
Public sin, right? Social sin, tax collector.
Yeah, on display.
But then Jesus said, truly, this too is a child of Abraham.
Right.
The woman that is healed with the issue of blood, he looks at her and says, daughter, your faith has healed you. So the healing, the sozo there is restoration to the community. Because the tax collecting, the leprosy, the disability, all of those things separated you from community. So in healing, whatever those things were, you were restoring back to the community.
Right.
So the issue of blood had you were separate from the community. If you were in any way disabled, you could not go as far into
leprosy,
the temple.
you were
totally. So you were these were social. These were not just physical ailments. They were social ailments that had religious judgment attached to them. So take the man with the shriveled hand.
Yeah.
Right. So I've read rabbinic literature that talks about if a hand is shriveled, then this happened to one of the Old Testament kings who was reaching for something that was only God's. And so God shriveled his hand. So the judgment was that this man must have been stealing or reaching for something that wasn't his. So it's not just that he had a shriveled hand, couldn't work, but now there's a religious judgment attached.
Yeah.
Jesus deals with this in John 9. Who sinned?
Yeah.
That this man was born blind, him or his parents?
Yeah.
So the misunderstanding here is that physical ailments were only physical ailments. They're not. They're social ailments too. So of course the individual is healed, but the individual is healed back to the 99 and part of the covenant community.
Yeah.
So even there, and Jesus sometimes will verbally say this. He'll say daughter, or he'll say this too is a child of Abraham. Other times, like when you go when he heals a leper, he'll say go to the priest and have the priest declare you clean, which means now this person is restored back into the fullness of life in Israel. Yep. So again, there are physical healings of individuals, of course, but what are they healed from and what are they healed to? They're healed from the physical ailment, but they're healed from the social, stigma attached to those ailments, and they're healed to, health in whatever the specific ailment was, but to reconfigured membership in the covenant community.
That's crazy. I mean,
Yeah, no one ever talks about that.
no, I would never think that. That is so far from my reality of those things.
Yeah, me too.
And
It's taken years.
So the solitude of the church fathers,
Right.
as they practice that's been.
I want to say that wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
For seasons, of course, Jesus.
monk stuff, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Solitude.
Monk's a TV show that has this
That's
guy
strong.
that has.
That's funny.
Strong.
But
There it is. Kevin on fire.
Yeah, on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring him heaven or Kevin,
Yeah.
and it's heaven.
It's
Yeah.
I don't know
It's
what it is.
all
today.
What else did Monk play in?
Yeah. Didn't Monk play
Men in
in
Black.
Forrest Gump?
Men in Black. He was in Men in
Yeah,
Black.
there it is.
So the
He
monks.
was an alien
Yeah.
in Men in Black.
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah.
So I want to have the audacity
getting
to
his head cut
suggest that the withdrawing from society, by and large, now I think there are exceptions to this, but by and large was not a faithful posture towards the rest of the world. Now there were times, like Paul in Acts, he pulled together a collection of students and he called it the School of Tyrannus, and for 2 years he taught them, but that was still in the middle of Asia Minor. I think there are times where Jesus would withdraw from crowds, absolutely, and maybe Paul even talks about going into the desert for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
All for that. But the idea,
for that.
the idea that the life of God is best
yeah.
expressed
In
withdrawn
No.
from the rest of the world, I don't think is a Christian idea. I think it's a Gnostic idea,
Yep.
and I think that
Yes, it
there's
is.
a lot of appeal to that.
Good
But when
callback.
Jesus looks, look at that.
Yeah.
But when Jesus looks at the Essenes, who were the desertish community,
Separatists.
the separatists, he actually there are specific words he will use that seem to have overlap with that community where he seems to correct them. So when he talks about my prayer is that I would not take you out of the world, but that you would be kept safe from the evil one,
Wow.
that's a big deal. So, and notice what the early church did. The early church did not go and form monk-like communities in the wilderness. The early church stayed in the metropolis that was Jerusalem, and had to be pushed out ultimately in the persecution of Acts chapter 8.
And I mean, there's so many of those writers, those monk writers that kind of went away and really shaped my theology, my personal theology. In some ways, I'm almost wanting to go back and read some of those because
some of it's great. Moses in the wilderness for 40 years, they were shaped and were prepared. Israel in the desert for 40 years.
Yeah.
But what's the point of the wilderness? It's never to stay. It's always to prepare.
Yeah.
And so
just some of those people that I've looked up to, and I'm sure there's great stuff there, but I think they almost perpetuated the individual gospel because they were just almost alone with just them and God.
Unless, I mean, there are some like the Benedictines, I believe, St. Francis, who lived as in the world as a very different sort of citizen of it.
Right.
So you created communities that were still present in the world, but had an entirely different set of values. And there's some argument historically that as the world became more pagan, Rome fell, the world became that these monk-like communities preserved writing, they preserved the Bible, they preserved literacy.
Yeah.
And they served an important purpose.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying, and of course they had relationship with God. Of course they did.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I don't know I don't know you can get there from the examples in Acts, the teaching of Paul or the teaching of Jesus to say that is the primary way the church is to engage culture. I think that's actually not. I think that's really against the grain of the New Testament teaching.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, but great. I mean, these are all
great. Oh yeah, powerful questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the problem in me, just I'll speak for myself, is I look at this and go, wow, that's so awesome. That is so communal. That's so great.
Yeah.
How does my Timness
Yes.
fit into this?
So good.
And it's like, that's so great. I'll be more aware of that and more aware of me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to see those yet. And we've been talking about this for 3 straight years. Totally. Not in this series. Like this is like every week we talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and the hope is that we'll flesh out some of this because I mean Paul doesn't leave it. Jesus they don't leave it at theory. Right. So like this week. Well, I don't know what we're going to look at. I did some family work last night.
Tuesday.
It was great.
It's
I know.
Yeah. Got plenty of time before Sunday.
But like in terms of how we construct personal identity, that's going to be a really important factor. Mm-hmm. How it is that we engage in politics. I mean, this undercuts so much of the political discourse that we have.
Right.
So, I mean, there are some practical implications, but we almost have to like to use your phrase, rethink our thinking about, okay, who am I? If I'm a toe in the body of Christ, which I feel like, the pinky toe, and kind of a scrunchy pinky toe.
Yeah,
I am a toe.
Yeah,
but I don't make perfect. But I don't make sense apart from a foot or a leg or a torso or connection ultimately to a brain. And I know Paul uses this, and we talked about it on Sunday.
Yeah.
But it's the reconfiguring of no, and you said this yesterday, Tim, that was genius. I think I'm the whole body.
Yeah.
As part of the body of Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I'm a little speck in the whole body of Jesus, and I have a small part to play that's in service to the rest.
Right.
And that's not so. When I ask the question, hey, what do I want to do with my life? Where does my passion and the world's need intersect, and I can get paid for something? To live from a communal place asks those same questions differently, right? And I look at career choices I've made that have been wrong, and if I would have asked them differently, I would have made vastly different choices.
True. Same place.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I do think there's very practical outcomes on this, but we almost can't get there without the rethinking the thinking.
Right.
So hopefully over the next several weeks, we explore some of those. Because you're right. I mean, there are some of us who are in theory perfect. There are others of us who are like, no, this makes zero sense. But we've almost got to get to the place where, okay, I'm not, the invitation of Jesus isn't to die to my individuality. The invitation of Jesus is to see my individuality as part of a greater mosaic where I'm not the sole autonomy. Yeah. I'm not the sole autonomous individual I think I am. I'm actually in service to.
Yeah, I'm not the end game. I mean, I feel like I live my life as though I am the end.
Point. Yes.
I'm the point. And as we've talked about this a million times, the fruit of the Spirit are for me.
Right.
So the end of the fruit of the Spirit is for Timmons to have more joy and more peace.
Yeah.
So that other people can see it and then become Christians.
Yeah.
But it's not actually for
well, it's
else.
the song that you and Chris wrote that we played for the sake of the other.
Yeah.
Let us walk like you, let us talk like you.
So just at the end, it's making me think of all the I am statements, all the identity statements that we have that I forget who went through all those.
Yes, years ago.
Freedom.
I am God's beloved.
Yeah.
I am God's
masterpiece.
Yeah.
Which might be interesting as you're thinking about identity.
Yeah.
Because we've lived in those. Those have cemented my personal identity in some beautiful ways.
Yeah.
Yet it's probably really malformed me in other ways. And when you're reading the one another's, I was like, oh my gosh, that is unbelievable. I went back through it yesterday and just was reading through all the one another's. And I was thinking about the I ams and the one another's, and there's got to be a way, like how do these things fit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was thinking about that
That's
for the
so
identity
good,
for this
Tim.
weekend. Like,
there you go.
That's what we're all swimming in that water with that air that we're breathing in.
Yeah.
Is I am
Social distortion. Social distortion,
Okay,
right there, baby.
Babe.
Well,
killed it.
all that I can
Crushed
say.
Yeah.
We probably need to sign out and go to staff meeting.
Let's do it.
Are we good? We're good. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for putting a bow on that sucker.
Tim, way to bow it.
All right. We're out.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey Now. If for some bizarre reason you liked it, help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing it on your socials. Journey Now is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III produces the show and fixes all the guests' slurping, gum chewing, coughing, and other annoying sounds. Randy Hansen provides technical assistance, even though he denies it. Grant Opperman edits Journey Now and intervenes when necessary to tell the crew that you can't say that. Special shout out to dear listener Brad Erre and dear YouTube watcher Seth Erre. If there's anyone else who makes it through each week, we're so sorry, and thanks to you too.